Hey, what's up guys, Metal571 here, and today I'm going to be talking about the Stax SR-L700. I have never reviewed a Stax headphone before, so I'm excited about that. Hopefully we'll get a 007 in here, 009, all that stuff that I said would be dream-worthy to review someday, but right now I have the L700, which actually turns out, well, you'll see. So this is a $1,425, 145 kilo ohm, 101 dB per 100 VRMS. Root mean square voltage for you nerds out there. Sensitivity 580 volt DC bias electrostatic headphone, or ear speaker as Stax likes to say. That's quite a mouthful of specs. All you really need to know is it's another electrostat like the Koss I reviewed just recently. And so how does it sound? So the bass rolls off, I'd say at around 50 hertz, which is really disappointing. It's got a weird hump at like 70 hertz. You can see my ears, MiniDSP ears measurements in the description. I've linked it. I probably am going to make a video about this instead of talking about the limitations here of the MiniDSP ears, but I do have one now so that I can measure some headphones to give you a general idea of what's going on. It's not a very accurate measurement system compared to Gross, 43 AGs and, B&K 4128Cs and Head Acoustics HMS3s, that kind of thing. But it's definitely something that people can afford on the other hand, and it is provably more accurate than a flat plate. But anyway, that's probably a whole different video I'm going to have to make. But just so you know, the MiniDSP ears is here. I'm measuring it, and I measured this headphone, and it actually helped because in the bass, I by ear could tell that it was rolling off quite a bit by 50 hertz, and it looks like the measurements line up with that. There's some kind of bump at 70 hertz, and then it just rolls. That's what it sounds like too. But that does respond pretty well to EQ. You got some weird, wacky EQ, so I have that in the description as always to correct it. But it does smooth out. You can do it. But even with that, even though you can get the bass extension there, I don't think it has the kind of dynamics and slam you're going to get from like, a Fostex X00 or the HD800 even. HD800. I don't have a Foster headphone in-house right now. So it's a little disappointing that this just doesn't seal and just work. But apparently a lot of these Stax Lambda style headphones are like that. So maybe it's not so weird. Anyway, moving on to the mids. So the first thing I noticed when I put on this headphone actually is that there's a really annoying 1.5K shout. And this showed up on a lot of measurements. It was so bizarre. I couldn't figure out where it was by EQ. And then I looked at some measurements and I was like, oh, there it is. And then I started pulling down that peak via EQ, and then it was like, okay, now this makes more sense. A being it with the Sennheiser HD6XX, which is my reference, of course. So that was very bizarre, and that's objectively there. It shows up on the ears. I think ears is somewhat accurate up to around 2K in my experiments so far. After that, it's kind of a little bit weird. So yeah, that showed up in the measurements as well. It does sound like that. So that creates this sort of like shoutiness. It's worse actually on these worse on the L700 than the Koss electrostat, which had a bit of that as well. I don't know if this is just a normal electrostat thing, but that's showing up here as well, but it's a little bit more annoying on the Stax L700. However, the mid-range detail is ridiculous. It's really quite good, right up there with the HD800 in detail, I'd say, with upper mids. I think I boosted the upper mid-range a little bit as well, because after I got rid of the 1.5K shout, there was quite a dip there following it into the upper mids, but some of you may not be bothered with that. And the treble is probably the star of the show here. It is bright. There's like a 5 dB peak, so I can hear somewhere around 10K. There's a general lift of the treble above 10K. So it's not a warm headphone. It's nothing like the Sennheiser 6XX, but the thing is, it is so fast and it is so detailed. It's got that ethereal sheen like that I was talking about that the Koss has, but with the Stax, you've got enormous resolution up there above 10K and in the mid treble, and there's no lower treble peaks like 6K or whatever like that going on here. So it's more of like a classically bright headphone without being overly annoying, though it does stick out to me when you're used to listening to a HD6XX, which is basically a 650 Actually, it is a 650 inside. Which, you know, so this may not bother you, but the mids will be pretty weird, I think, for a lot of people. Maybe they just like that. But the treble is a little bright there. So it does have that ethereal, like very nice layer texture of just cleanliness here. So instead of having a even layer of grain, like I said on the cost, this one's just got an even layer of just complete detail. It sounds awesome, and it's really impressive. It's probably on the level of like the LCD4 almost, is what I'm hearing. It's pretty great. It's not surprising. I mean, when I put this thing on a CanJam, I was pretty shocked. It sounded like it kept right up with the 009, maybe even surpassed it in detail. In the treble, really impressive. Just kind of annoyingly bright for me, but many people probably won't care about that. If you're listening to really well recorded music, it's probably not going to sound bright. It's going to be detailed. So in this region also, of course, is blowing away the LCD2 Classic, not even close. And actually, what was really interesting is I went back and forth a couple of times to make absolutely sure this was the case, but it sounds to me that the L700 can out-resolve the HD800 in the treble and the upper treble in particular. Really awesome detail, that good. Moving on to Soundstage. So it's good. I mean, it's fine. It's not an HD800. I mean, the number of times I've said that is ridiculous, because the HD800 really has the largest stage ever. I think that the HD800 still wins over it in image specificity, is what I'm saying, is like exact direction of instruments and stage width overall. But I don't think it's really so far behind as to disqualify it, you know, running around its price. It's really not that bad. So, however, deal breakers wise, what is going on with the plastic on these eStats? This is like a $50 headphone in build quality. I mean, I think it's got more heft, I mean, than the cost electrostat. But what is this? It's just this is not ASMR reviews, but just there's so much plastic going on everywhere. And of course the cable's not removable again. Some people helped me out on that cost review that I did recently, though, and said that removable cables are kind of a bad thing for electrostats. You kind of want them to be non-removable for safety reasons. I can understand that. But yeah, the build quality is still, I mean, it's not what it should be for it being so expensive. The upside of this, however, that you should be aware of, is that it's very light and it's very, very, very comfortable. The pads, there's no issues with at all. They're huge and they're tall, and there's lots of adjustability in the headband, which is very comfortable and wide. It just works. It's just built like, it feels somewhat toy-like. Not as toy-like as the cost, though, thankfully. So what does this all mean? This means that for under $1,000 used, I think it's a good value. Now, you have to be very unafraid of EQ, I think, with this headphone, because it's got such a strange frequency response. We've got bass rolling off, we've got mids shouting at 1.5K, we've got some mid treble, we've got a suck out in the upper mids. What's going on with the frequency response of this thing? I don't know. But if you put that aside and you think about the amount of resolution this thing offers in the treble, which is, you know, something like $4,000 worthy, from my ears, from what I'm hearing here, it's those are the advantages and disadvantages, really. Take it for what it is. This is for up to you guys to decide. I mean, I can give you a recommendation, but it won't work for 9 out of 10 people. So, you know, you got to listen to these things yourself ultimately. But I think that putting all the pieces together, in my opinion, this is a really great headphone. But again, you're not going to get the soundstage width the HD800 has. You're going to lose the dynamics in the bass that the HD800 has, and some biocellulose drivers do. And you are going to gain a ton of upper treble detail, and you're going to lose a frequency response that's somewhat normal also. But you got the Stax sound, if you like the way Stax sound, if you like this lambda-ish kind of frequency response, and you like that extra extreme detail and resolution, then I think you could pay $1,000 or $1,500 for this and not be sad. So that is the Stax L700. Stay tuned for more reviews, and thanks for watching.